Let's go! Are you kidding me? LSU football fans, we have a bombshell. Texas and Oklahoma potentially joining the Southeastern Conference. This would obviously shake so many things up. So obviously the comment section is going to be lit. But I think even more importantly are two questions. Does this help or hurt LSU? And what are things going to look like? So obviously this is going to be a super laid back video because this is breaking news. So because it is such a super laid back video, I actually tweeted about this exact game last night when Giannis was going off. Who can forget Justin Jefferson going against Oklahoma? And we're going to get to a few more photos in just a second. But obviously, right off the jump here, this was broken by the Houston Chronicle. And look, a lot of no comments from the powers that be, whether it's the Big 12 or Greg Sankey, as we go through SEC Media Days. It is absolutely wild that this report happens on the week of SEC Media Days and the Big 12 Media Days. Well, what's really fascinating is the timing of it, and why is this being leaked right now? Well, I think a big reason is because there is so much changing in college football with the NIL, with the transfer rules, and all these different things. And honestly, the bottom line is money. At the bare minimum of all of this, we all know that these conferences and these teams wouldn't be making these switches unless it involved money. The only definitive statement we have heard from someone that is powerful and someone that actually is going to have a say in this is Texas A&M Athletic Director Ross Bjork, who said definitively that I want to be the only SEC West, or just the only SEC school in the state of Texas, which is very important. You look back with alignment talks and joining the SEC and all of that, a big thing for a lot of these schools is that they want to be the only Southeastern Conference school in their respective state. Now, as many of you know, that is not the case with Mississippi. They have two schools. Alabama has two schools, and so on and so on. But still, there is a lot of value in that. And as an LSU fan, you understand this as well, because LSU is the only SEC school in the state of Louisiana. That obviously helps out a lot with the recruiting, especially considering LSU is the only Power 5 school in the state of Louisiana, a really talent-rich state. So what we know now is that Texas A&M is vehemently, just so strongly opposed to this idea. However, I go back and I was looking at some different reports regarding this. Clay Travis had a good piece about this in Outkick 6 years ago when this was being brought up. There was a pact of SEC schools that basically said, well, we are not going to allow another school in our state to join the conference. I do think times have changed since then. And for the SEC to add Texas and Oklahoma, there needs to be 75% of the teams to vote them on. 75% would mean 11 of the 14 teams would have to vote on Texas and Oklahoma. What exactly does this mean for LSU? Is this a good or a bad thing? Well, first thing is that obviously this is very, very early and this is just an initial reaction video. But it is a good thing for a lot of reasons. The first is that LSU is simply going to make more money. Every school in the SEC is going to make more money off of this when two of the top 10 brands in the sport join your conference. So, of course, LSU is going to be on board with this if this means that they're going to make more money, especially with the NIL and the transfer portal and all the different things that are happening and changing in the sport of college football. If you can do something that can enrich your school and your athletic department, you're going to freaking do it. And it's going to make everyone else rich in the SEC. So yes, even though it's going to take 11 of the 14 schools to vote on for this, we know Texas A&M is not going to vote for it. So that means 10 of the remaining 13, well, I'd say 10, 11 of the remaining 13 are going to have to vote on for it. And it's just hard for me to find someone in the conference that's going to say no to more money. Once again, brands really do mean something in the sport. Texas and Oklahoma are huge brands in the sport. Whether you look at the NFL and you look at their history, you look at their fan bases, they are ginormous. You can make a strong case that Texas and Oklahoma, really outside of LSU and Alabama, Texas and Oklahoma is in that same realm as far as just pure all-out brands. Now, those schools haven't been as successful as LSU and Oklahoma in the past few decades, but they are huge for a lot of different reasons. Heisman trophies, national championships, and just overall fan bases. It would be insane for the SEC to say no to this as far as money is concerned. However, we're not making any money out of this, right? So what does it matter to you? Is this an actual good thing for LSU? Because ultimately, you as a fan, all you care about is winning games, right? Is this good for LSU? The answer is an overwhelming yes. And it's ironic that this news happens less than 24 hours from our video yesterday, which fully explained how bad the conference schedule is set up for LSU. And I shared in that video how difficult it is to actually change the unfair conference schedule that LSU has to play every year with the permanent cross-division rival rule. Even though the SEC is, hesitant for change, and come on, everyone knows that the 8-game conference schedule with the cross-division rival is very unfair to LSU, Auburn, Florida, and Georgia, and really favorable for Alabama and Texas A&M. Even though we know that, it is highly unlikely for the SEC to go from an 8 to a 9-game conference schedule. But if you add 2 teams and you remain an 8-game conference schedule, that is simply implausible. We want it to be reformed. So obviously, you do want Texas and Oklahoma to join. Now, what would it look like? Well, let's take a look. So if the SEC were to remain a 2-division SEC West and SEC East outlook, it's ironic that I made this graph and my guy Diesel on radio, he's a producer for when I do ESPN radio work. He actually listed these divisions out pretty much the exact same way. This is what I think it would look like. Texas and Texas A&M and Oklahoma and LSU would still, of course, form the SEC West, along with Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. And then Alabama and Auburn would join the SEC East with Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. And judging by the looks of this, looks pretty fair to me. Now, obviously, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida have been stronger football programs than Texas and Texas A&M. But if you actually look at their recruiting ranks for right now, and if Sark gets that ball rolling at Texas, that looks like a pretty even division split right there, especially considering Oklahoma has been so powerful over the past few decades. I think this would be pretty fair. And honestly, you look at the West, the bottom half of the SEC West is stronger than the bottom half of the SEC East. So obviously, I think this would be a fair way to make the SEC West and SEC East. And if you're an LSU fan, you obviously want this because this would put Alabama into the East. Now, what would the schedule actually look like? I don't know. I do know this. It can't stay at an 8-game conference schedule unless they actually divided up the conferences even more, which it would look something like this. What if you actually split the divisions into 4 divisions? I don't think you could do an SEC West, SEC East, and have a plausible yet traditional schedule format. So this is how I would do it. The SEC Southwest would include our Tigers, Texas A&M, Texas, and Mississippi State. The SEC Northwest would feature Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Ole Miss. The SEC Northeast, Georgia, Bama, Kentucky, and Tennessee. I did initially have Vanderbilt instead of Alabama there, but I switched those out for competitive balance reasons. And then for the SEC Southeast, Florida, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. Obviously, you could flip out Vanderbilt for Kentucky if that's what you wanted to do, but Yes, and I know that's also weird. The Southeastern Conference, Southeast Division. So how would a football schedule actually shape itself out? Now, once again, I'm trying to get this video out in a timely manner, but so the visuals here won't be the absolute best. But here's what I would do. I would have LSU play Texas A&M, Texas, Mississippi State. Those are your permanent teams that you play each and every year. And then to create a 9-game conference schedule, so you play those 3 games, home and home every year. Then you would play Arkansas, Georgia, Florida 1 year. Then the next year you would play Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. And then the next year, and so that would get you at a 9-game conference schedule. And then the next year, LSU would play Oklahoma, Bama, Auburn, and then Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina. And then obviously you can mix and match and do whatever, but then that gets you at a 9-game conference schedule, and you are playing every team in your conference once every other year, and you're visiting the opponent's stadium once every 4 years. So if you go to a Southeastern Conference school and you stay the 4 years, with this format that obviously I just drew up in like 10 minutes, in theory, you would get to visit each and every Southeastern Conference stadium. But yeah, I would like a 9-game conference schedule. Hopefully that all made sense. Maybe I got my numbers all wrong. So obviously in the comment section below, let me know today what you think of today's video. I would like to not visit an SEC stadium once every 12 years, which is how things are currently shaped up with our current SEC schedule. And if you want to know why that's the case, obviously click this video right here. This was from yesterday where I shared how Dan Mullen potentially saved Ed Orgeron and Walker Howard from a potential college football playoff run. I'm dead serious. So click that link right there, okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Oh, yeah, we're doing some pasta tonight. Let's